The typical distributive negotiation is a process of compromise, where the negotiating parties go through the predictable steps of stating their position, making as persuasive an argument as possible for that position, and then making reluctant concessions until they reach a point where positions are sufficiently similar for an agreement to be made. As we all know, this process of compromise can easily become competitive, as each concession means less and less value going to the conceding party. It also tends to be combative and contentious, since the parties are constantly trying to persuade each other that they are right and the other side is wrong. And this in turn will tend to ruin relationships and make future interactions more difficult. And this is why the distributive approach is probably best in situations where there will be no future, where a one-time deal is being sought, like in a flea market or an online auction. And in the latter case, we might not even know who we are negotiating with, and therefore the relationship is unimportant. This leads us to predict that a strategy of distributive negotiation might be effective and even appropriate when the substantive outcome is more important than the relationship. In fact, we can provide a 4-cell matrix that is similar to the dual concerns model. That is, as we prepare for a negotiation, we should carefully reflect on what our most important goals are for the upcoming negotiation. In particular, are we more concerned about the substantive outcome or the future of our relationship with the other side? When considering these two concerns, we are confronted with 4 possibilities. 1, we care more about the substantive outcome than we care about the relationship, which is when the competitive, the distributive approach might be appropriate. 2, and alternatively, we might care more about the relationship than we care about the substantive outcome. In this case, the best approach is to be accommodating. And this might be the situation when we are negotiating with a family member or a loved one. 3, sometimes we really care deeply about both the substantive outcome and the future of the relationship. And this is the case when we should avoid the distributive approach and instead employ a more integrative or cooperative approach. 4, and of course, the last possibility is the case where we neither care about the substantive outcome nor the relationship, in which case we should not be negotiating in the first place. We should use a strategy of avoidance. Anyway, suppose we are in a situation where we really care about the substantive outcome while not being concerned about the relationship that we have with the other side. That is, we have decided that we should pursue a distributive negotiation. So, in this case, what are the keys to success? Well, we already know that we need to be well prepared, and we need to be effective at presenting persuasive arguments, and we need to know how to make concessions that allows us to retain as much value as possible while giving up as little value as possible. That is, we need to focus on negotiation stages 1, preparation, 4, persuasion, and 5, making concessions. But what about the other stages? In terms of stage 2, build relationship, your goal is to make your future persuasion efforts as effective as possible. Social psychology tells us, for example, that people are more likely to accept proposals made by people that are liked and trust, as well as people who are viewed as being in a position of authority. Thus, as you begin to interact with the other side, your goal should be to make them like you, trust you, and view you as a person with authority. That is, a person, someone who has knowledge and expertise over the issues that will be discussed and resolved. Okay, in terms of stage 3, exchange information. Your goal here is to disclose as little as possible about your own needs, wants, and constraints. while at the same time learn as much as possible about the other side. Your ultimate goal is to figure out what the other side's reservation point is. If you know the other party's reservation point, then you will win the negotiation. You will be able to do as well as theoretically possible, and the other side will lose. It's a win-lose negotiation. Okay, what are some possible good tactics? Well, the first one we need to recognize is that the first offer is very important. Studies show that in competitive negotiations, the final outcome is correlated with the first offer due to a cognitive bias known as the anchoring principle. In addition, and again, don't disclose any information except your good other alternatives. So you should only talk about your good options. Never ever reveal your true needs and or preferences. You should also learn as much as possible about the other side. Try to get them to reveal their preferences, constraints, goals, and if possible, their reservation point, their bottom line. Then, exploit what you learn. Once you have learned about the other side's preferences and constraints, exploit them to your advantage. Feel free to use hardball tactics to achieve a good substantive outcome for yourself. Just one warning. Be careful to not overshoot. That is, the main risk with competitive bargaining is that you go crazy and act so aggressively that the other side decides to simply walk away. So, keep your proposals realistic but tough, and always try to be friendly to the person. Remember, they need to like you.